we'll call the September 7th meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We'll begin with the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just as a point of information tonight, we have several items which have been tabled at previous meetings will remain on the table tonight. So items 8 is under public hearings this evening. That applicant is asked to have that tabled, so that'll be tabled. Then 9, 10, 11, and 12 will remain on the table under old business. So if you're here for any of those items will not be discussed this evening. Now, Jess, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sidoti.
Here.
Mr. Valeri.
Here.
Mr. Varga.
Here.
Mrs. Simperman.
Here.
Mr. Perkovic.
Here.
Mr. Snow.
Here.
Miss Moritz.
Here.
Okay.
Entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the August 17th meeting, please.
So moved. Second.
Jess?
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Valeri.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman.
Abstain.
Miss Moritz.
Abstain.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. We have several public hearings this evening. The format we follow for public hearings is we allow the applicant an opportunity to tell us what they want to do at a particular location. Then those wishing to speak in favor are afforded a similar opportunity. Then anyone wishing to speak against is afforded an opportunity to speak against. Then if you have any questions, you can come up at that point and ask questions, and we'll get answers during the meeting for those questions. So, first public hearing this evening is a conditional use permit to allow reduction of the required buffer adjacent to an R2 single-family resident district at 8655 Market Street. I see the applicants here. If you'd identify yourself for the clerk, please.
Hello, Chris Boudet with Bolt, and our address is 1110 North Old World 3rd Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53203. All right. As you noted, we're here, and I just want to make a clarification. It's not for the reduction of any of the landscape or buffer requirements, but instead as it's for a modification of those requirements. As originally submitted, the plan showed an extensive overlap of new plantings with existing plantings along the resident's property. It was identified by our landscaping contractor that the process of bringing equipment in and in between those existing trees and then planting the new plantings would disturb the root systems of those trees, and there was a concern that many of the several hundred existing trees would be damaged either in the short term or in the long term. So the modifications that we're proposing are, in fact, to relocate all of the Type H tree or the trees that are required by the Type H buffer. We're looking to locate those more along the perimeter of the existing trees. In order to better identify where that perimeter really exists, we did a tree survey. We've identified both the good, high-quality trees that we want to maintain, as well as any dead, dying, or diseased trees. Those poor-quality trees are going to be removed in this process. That was not originally part of the plan. So by clearing out a lot of those dead, dying, and diseased trees, we've opened up a little bit more area for the new plantings. And if anyone has seen that area, you'll know that there's a lot of plantings in there. For instance, in just about a 100-foot stretch here, we have over 200 existing trees in that buffer area. So, again, like I said, relocating these new plantings along the perimeter keeps them out of the existing canopy, which will better allow those new plantings to flourish. It also keeps equipment out of the existing trees, again, not disturbing their root systems and allowing them to live. The other modification that we're proposing is instead of placing our 8-foot-tall board-on-board fence at the bottom of the mound, we're going to move it up to the top of the mound. As currently approved, the top of the fence is about level with the top of the mound by placing it on top of the mound, and in fact raises that top of the fence by about 8 feet. So from the residents, their view, if they were able to see over the top of the mound before, now they're just seeing a fence opposed to any part of the building that was visible. And then in order to try and buffer that board-on-board fence from the residents, we're now placing plantings on the residents' side of the board-on-board fence to kind of soften or buffer that, so they're not just looking at a wooden fence. There's some trees and plantings there to soften that. And then additionally, along our property line, on our property, but on the residence side, again, at the bottom of the mound, we're looking to place some additional plantings just to kind of clean up the very perimeter of our property, which directly abuts the residence property line.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Spence, this is a modification, not a reduction. Is that correct?
That's correct. The buffer, it calls for 50 feet. I think they've got 91 feet along the one property line and about 85 feet, 85 to 90 on the other. So there's no reduction in the buffer width. The modification is to the landscape plan based on what Chris just said.
Okay. And you've read the staff report. There is a condition in there that anything that gets planted or is there now and dies will be replaced.
Yes, that's understood, and I believe we actually have a landscape bond in place currently to address that condition. I believe that was part of the prior approval.
Okay. Commission members, questions for the applicant or the administration?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Valeri.
just a couple verifications. You are not reducing any of the plantings. You're keeping the same count?
We are meeting the type H buffer requirements.
Okay. And what you had submitted was the type H originally. My question is, are you reducing the number of things that you're planting?
There's not a reduction. There's a reclassification. Some of the existing plantings are being qualified and counting towards that type H buffer requirement.
Okay.
But those are only the high-quality trees that we've established, not any of the dead, dying, or diseased trees.
But the net new is going to be less than what it was going to be since you're going to retain some.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And for the administration, has anyone gone to validate as far as what's going to stay? Are we comfortable?
Yeah, we were out and looked at it.
As far as the fence goes, can you reiterate what kind of fence did we approve?
I believe it's a board-on-board fence, and I believe that's specifically called out within the requirements for that type H buffer.
Okay. I'm not sure. Can we validate if it was board-on-board or if we were going with vinyl? If we could just look back at...
I'd have to look back.
Okay, if we could, please. And then the other comment was, I know the staff report called for an updated irrigation plan, because what you're calling out here doesn't cover the entire property. It looks like you guys have kind of shrunk the sprinkler system down some. Is that accurate?
No, we have not shrunk the sprinkler system. I believe all the areas are being sprinklered, and that's a design build. Our sprinkler contractor is how we've contracted for that. So we've identified the areas that have to be sprinklered per your requirements, and then our contractor will, however he decides best to sprinkler those areas.
So the perimeter of the property isn't going to be sprinkled. So the back of it, where the parking stalls are and those trees, those aren't going to be. There's going to be no irrigation up along the side, up along the front. There's going to be no irrigation.
We will have irrigation in all the landscape, or accessible for all the landscape buffer areas.
Landscape buffer, but I'm talking along Market Street. It shows the line that you're showing jogs back in. So you're going to irrigate along your front entrance, but then you're not going to continue along the perimeter of your property. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. We're irrigating all the interior landscape islands. That was part of the original plan as approved. We've made no other modifications beyond the landscape buffer.
And then just validation from administration. Do we call out only certain areas, or is it the entire property needs to be irrigated?
We don't call out the whole thing, no, not always.
Okay. I'm just making sure, because along those perimeter areas, you're going to have some nice looking landscape islands, but the perimeter of it may end up getting hit by drought, and we're going to have brown dead grass then.
Right, and I believe that's, if there's any trees that do happen to die, that's where that landscape bond and would come into play, where we would replace those trees as required by the bond.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant or the administration?
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Simperman.
you mentioned that along the fence line bordering the residence, so I'm looking at the west side of that fence, that there were going to be conifers planted, so they wouldn't have to see the fence. Is that what you stated?
That is correct.
You can have that back.
So there's a drawing there on the table there that we have up here on our screens. Can you tell me where those conifers are going to be? I'm not quite sure I understand where you're speaking of.
Certainly. So if you look on here where I'm pointing, kind of these darker shaded trees, those are all the evergreen conifers. And you'll see the fence runs, now it's placed really in the middle of the mound, on the top of the mound. And for instance, in this area here, where we're outside of the existing tree grove, which we're trying to maintain, we're planting those trees on the residence side of the fence. Again, we're doing that down here. And really, we've strategically located these. These particular areas are where the residents don't have any of their own plantings, so they would have a direct line of sight to the fence. So that's why we've placed the conifers in this location here. This over here, we've got a little bit more area, which doesn't have any existing drip line overhanging it. So we've planted some larger trees, as well as you'll see in white, there's a few small shrubs, which can. Yes, there's several different types of shrubs. Looks like a total of almost 70 or 80 shrubs that are being placed again on the residence side of the fence along this section of the buffer here.
So for clarification, you'd mentioned that there were conifers planted on the residence side. So the conifers, and when we're saying conifers, I'm referring to trees, are on the two corners, basically, of the property, or of the fence line. So towards Market Street and then on the other corner, correct?
Yes, this represents, this length here is just about 100 feet, so 100 linear feet of plantings along the residence side. And over here, this is probably closer to 150 linear feet.
Except that that's not on the residence side.
It is. There's plantings on the resident, both sides of the fence in this particular area.
But there's not conifers on the residence side.
There are down in this corner.
Right.
And then as we go up here and we have some additional area, we've planted bigger plantings as well as shrubs.
Not conifers.
That's correct, not conifers, not in all locations.
Okay, and then along the west side there, I know there's some you said that, so we're talking about the middle section there.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that there's existing trees there, and I get that. Are there going to be any conifers planted in that area, or are we just looking at shrubs and existing trees?
Right, we're looking at shrubs along the perimeter where we can access the land without getting within these trees. You'll see that this area here, this white area, represents over 250 existing trees in there. Okay. In only about a 200 linear foot span. So it's very tight, not anything that we could even get equipment in there to, really to bring the plantings in to plant. So that's why in this particular area, we've located smaller plantings along the perimeter. Okay. On just the small amount of land that is available on our property.
Now, you're going to be able to get in there to build this fence? Have you looked at the trees that are going to be in the way of the building of the fence? Usually that's the problem.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that was part of the strategy behind going in and surveying the area and getting accurate location of the trees. And yes, we can kind of snake the fence in there strategically so as to not disturb those existing trees. And again, on the plan, these are all accurate locations of the existing trees, and you'll see that it just so happens that there are very few that are located at the top of the mound where we intend to place our fence.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a question. Mm-hmm. Maintenance of the property, the plantings that are on the residential side of the fence, you guys are going to take care of that?
Yes, we are.
With a timetable that's a good timetable? And the reason I'm asking is we've had similar situations in other parts of the city where that seems to fall into an area of disrepair on occasion. And I want to be sure that those areas have a consistent maintenance program involved.
Yes, we intend to hire one landscape company that is responsible for all the landscape maintenance on the entire property. The location of that, just because it's at a far corner or behind a fence, it would still be subject to the same maintenance schedules, okay, pruning, and maintenance that we would look for or expect anywhere else at the building.
Okay. Now, it's not part of this situation, but you are going to screen those HVAC units on the roof of the building, correct?
Yes, and before coming here, I checked, and the components will arrive on October the 1st.
Okay, thank you. Commission members, any other questions for the applicant?
I just have one question.
Go right ahead, Mr. Varga.
How was it determined which areas of the landscaping were going to be irrigated and which ones were not going to be irrigated? And was that discussed with the city?
Do you want to touch that? Okay, so from what I recall, we had some discussions when we were initially going through this process, and I believe that we talked about only irrigating the interior. Originally, it was just the building perimeter, and we expanded that to include all the interior islands. I think there was some discussion about the heat island effect and the fact that you get that asphalt around those small islands that, if you don't irrigate those plantings, they're really doomed to survival. So that's why the irrigation was expanded from the building perimeter to the islands within the parking lot.
A question of the city, wouldn't we always assume that we would have the islands irrigated? Wouldn't that be a standard requirement?
Yeah, they did the islands.
No, I know. I'm just trying to suggest that was anticipated, at least from our point of view.
Well, we can get irrigation installed. They don't have to turn it on.
We talked about that. Okay.
Maybe at some point we need to have days without rain, and so many days without rain require the irrigation to come on.
Well, I don't know how you legislate that.
I think you could, but that's not what we're talking about this evening here. So at some point, I think we should look at that. Because as you point out, Mr. Spence, there are occasions where they don't turn it on, and we've had that occasion occur in other parts of the city.
Yeah, or they don't drain it in the breaks.
Right. So just a point of information so you know what we're concerned about in terms of, this is a big project, and it needs to stay nice. And it needs to be nice in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So just a point of information.
And we would completely agree with that. This is a large investment for our firm, and
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, we don't look to skimp on a couple of gallons of water to detract from the view of this facility.
Okay.
That's all.
Anything else, Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Simperman.
I'd like to move that we vote on this with, I would like to add another condition, though it may be redundant, in that the applicant has agreed to maintain both sides of the mound, both on the applicant's side and the residential side of the mound. I would just like to have that in our minutes. So 2 conditions.
Okay. You agree to that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Is that a motion, Mrs. Simperman?
That was a motion.
Okay. And it's been moved and seconded, so just when you're ready.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Valeri.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman.
Yes.
Ms. Moritz.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spence, I think we ought to look at some point of how do we enforce the irrigation so that it actually gets turned on occasion. So, Mr. Zeman, however you need to pursue that.
Generally, if the grass is dead and the plant materials are drying, we pursue that as a maintenance issue.
Okay.
And say, the cure to the problem is just turning this system on, assuming it exists.
Okay.
But let's face it, there's periods of the year where you just want the rain to stop as opposed to turning on your irrigation system. So it's
Well, I've seen irrigation
and I think what
systems on
happens
in the rain. So.
I think what happens is, unless it's set for a timer, it's on to some whomever is managing the facility to have that on their to-do list. And so often it's a management issue as opposed to some sort of institutional desire to not utilize the system.
Okay. Thank you. Second, conditional use permit to allow recreation facility at 7249 Industrial Park Boulevard. Is that applicant here? If you'd come up and identify yourself for the clerk, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Christine Schuster.
and tell us a quick overview of what you'd like to do at that location.
I'd like to open up a yoga studio, bring health and wellness to the community.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Okay, we'll close the public portion. Tell us a little bit more about what your plans are.
Well, I have 5 teachers that I want to put into place. I have a class schedule that I'm putting together, developing some programs for empowerment and continuing education on health and wellness.
Okay. Mr. Spence, any comments from the administration?
No, it's just a CUP for commercial recreation.
Commissioner members, any questions for the applicant? Mr. Sidoti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, good afternoon.
Hello.
Good evening.
Is this a new business, or are you operating somewhere else right now?
This is a new business.
Brand new?
Brand new.
Okay. That unit that's adjacent to you in the south, 7247, is that empty?
Right next to me,
Yeah,
yes.
going- Right next to you, going.
I believe so. I have never seen anybody there, but I'm not 100% if there is somebody there and they're just not there while I'm not.
So you think you have adequate parking on the sides and the front there?
The owner had indicated that, the business is going to be mainly operated in the evening.
Right.
So it appears it's pretty open in the evening as it is, and I was told that they would probably be available.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, commissioners?
Just one
Mr.
question.
Varga?
Is this, you have a floor plan here, is this existing? All these rooms and walls are existing?
This is existing.
And there's just a single toilet room
Yes.
and a single WC? Does the city have any issue with just a single facility? We're talking about
No, they
what,
didn't.
25 people maximum?
Yes. 20 to 25.
They didn't make any comments, no.
Okay. And you feel comfortable that that's going to work for the way you manage your
I
facility?
believe so. Students are there for roughly an hour of a class, so I think that we should be okay.
Anything else, commissioners?
Motion to approve with one condition?
Second.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Valeri.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman.
Yes.
Ms. Moritz.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Item 3, conditional use permit to allow a recreation facility at 7468 Tyler. Is that applicant here? If you come up to the podium and identify yourself for the clerk, please.
Good evening. My name is Jamil Elder.
Sure. Tell us a quick overview of what you'd like to do at that location.
Basically, we would like to open an interactive escape room. We have 2 vicinities right now, one in North Olmsted and one in Strongsville. Basically, we have different rooms set up, and we set up puzzles, and there's usually a group between 2 to 10 people, and they basically figure out puzzles, and they basically escape the room.
So
Pretty straightforward,
I guess it sounds like it. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Okay, Mr. Spence, comments from the administration.
In the conditions, it's recommended that an automatic emergency defibrillator shall be provided. That's not a requirement.
But it's a recommendation.
It's just a recommendation, so.
Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Commissioners, questions for the applicant? Mr. Sidoti.
Yes. Did you see the fire department's comment that at no time any guest shall be physically locked in any room? That's not part of what this, can you?
Correct. They're more than
They're not
welcome to
physically
leave the
locked
room.
in a room.
Correct. They're more than welcome to leave the room at any given time.
Okay.
Like if they wanted to use the restroom. Basically, it's just interactive between people that are known with each other, or we do group them with other people, and they just figure out puzzles and go to the next step.
A team building concept.
Exactly. Basically, you're like people are working with each other instead of just everybody on a phone. You're in a room, and everybody just figures out puzzles one after another.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anything else, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Valeri.
It's really not directed at the applicant, it's more the administration, and unfortunate the applicant gets dragged into this. The property's in poor condition. The landscaping's in horrible condition. There's trees all over that are dead. The property has 6-7 foot high weeds growing in the back around the utility poles. It's not striped. There's potholes. I mean, it's an extremely poor condition. And unfortunately, to put in a new tenant into this property, I mean, I feel as though we need to do something with the property owner to have it addressed and maintained.
Yeah, we
And
can sing code enforcement and zoning out to look at it.
Okay. I mean, the trees are all dead up along the front, and I mean,
I did notice that it does need a little bit of work on the outside in the back.
little's generous.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the general property. So whatever we can do to get somebody out there to encourage the property owner. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mrs. Zimmerman.
The staff had suggested that the primary customer access be from the rear of the building. Did you read that in the report at all?
No, I did not notice that.
Well, I guess in the front of the building, there are several spaces that are allotted to certain tenants, and therefore there's not going to be enough parking if you have the number of people that you hope to have at this facility. So they're going to have to be using the parking in the back, which, again, as Mr. Valeri pointed out, is poor at best. So a couple questions. First of all was, if that is your main entrance, the back entrance, I think you need some signage on the front door stating main entrance in the rear and parking available in the rear. But the other thought I had was the plan that you sent or gave to us,
Yes.
the interior renovation, is that's not of the interior of the building. Is that already, are you building that or is it already there?
I believe there's 2 restrooms. Our intent is to get our architect to draw our rooms out and, of course, update the electrical. Our intent, we're hoping that we don't have to do any changes with the restrooms. Of course, the HVAC. We did notice we don't have to do too much construction. Walls and electrical. It's pretty much our main intent at this point.
The reason I was asking that is that you're showing a reception and lobby area at the front of the building, and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be better if you had that at the rear of the building, maybe near the restrooms?
Absolutely. I mean, that's definitely something that I have to bring up with my colleagues. I wasn't aware that you guys want us to operate on the rear of the building.
Yes.
When I went and found this building, I did, of course, foresee that I was going to operate from the front of it. And then if we did need additional parking, we were just going to direct them to the back. I mean, if this is all in well with you guys, of course, that's great. If we do need to find a different location, we will do what we need to do to, make ourselves happy also.
I'm just reading from the staff report, it's just saying that, the daycare facility has 6 reserved spaces, but maybe the daycare facility won't, well, I don't know.
Well, most of our business is nights and weekends.
Except that the daycare was still in operation when I went by at 6:30 this afternoon.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, eh. And then, the auto and paint, again, that's probably just daytime. But anyway, they have some reserved spots, and you're going to have a lot more than probably just 5 or 6 people,
Absolutely.
I would think.
Yeah, I mean, even for our other locations, most of our business is done Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday. So we do very pleasant business. I mean, obviously, we don't want to harm any other businesses around us.
I understand that. I'm just thinking about the majority of the
Absolutely. I mean, if it, like I said, I'll bring it up to my colleagues.
Okay.
If the location is an issue, I mean, we're definitely going to address that and find something possibly more suitable for us if this does become an issue.
Okay, well, we'd really like to have you in Menor, so I don't want
We're excited. I mean, we do want to move forward. Of course,
Okay.
there's always a couple of hiccups that we got to, get over.
Anything else, Mrs. Zimmerman?
Nope, that's it. So motion to approve with 3 conditions. Are we including the AED or not as a condition, Mr.?
The applicant agreed he would do it, so I think we should include it then, since he agreed to it.
I believe there's 2 restrooms in there.
And we're talking about the defibrillator.
Okay.
What?
I'm not exactly sure what that is. Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve with 3 conditions.
Second.
Jess, when you're ready.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Valeri.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman.
Yes.
Miss Morris.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. And Mr. Spence, you'll turn that over to property maintenance?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Good evening.
Right.
Item 4, conditional use permit to allow drive-through facility at 9200 Menor Avenue. And if you would identify yourself, please.
I'm Lonnie West with Wolpert, and I have Chris Jones with Meyer.
Chris Jones with Meyer, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay, and so this is for the drive-through facility for the pharmacy,
Correct.
okay?
And last
And-
time we were here,
And we want to have a little more of an explanation as to what's going on.
okay. You want to, yeah.
As you guys may recall from our last presentation, Meyer purchased the Kmart in 2015. And we've been working with Kmart in conjunction with our neighbor, First Interstate Development, on the redevelopment of the shopping center. Kmart still has a leasehold interest in the property, and we are their landlord. We are starting to have our conversations with Kmart about terminating their lease, and those conversations are ongoing. And as soon as we can wrap that up, our goal is to start construction on this building in the spring of 2018 and be open. It usually takes us we have a tremendous amount of work that goes on inside the building. We plan to tear this building, the existing Kmart building, down and build back a brand new structure. And the construction process for that is very intricate on the inside of the buildings with our delis and our bakeries and our Sketcher shoe departments and our in-store lease tenants. So it takes about a year to construct a Meyer store with those additional uses in it. We're back before you tonight just as an overview. We've scaled back slightly the size of our building. When we were here before, it was 192,000 square feet, and we've kind of analyzed not just the market, but just our building footprints that we're building for the future, and we've made the decision to build all of our 2019 stores as what we call a 1.5. So it's 159,000 square feet. So that's why you'll see the kind of green, maybe if you'll point to it, Lonnie, the green space beside our store. We're reserving that area for some speculative retail. We don't have anyone in mind for that, but it can accommodate about a 24,000 square foot user. And opposite of that green space is our garden center. And I'll let Lonnie speak to the drive-through on the pharmacy.
Yeah, really, the pharmacy has not changed since the last request. The pharmacy is a big part of the Meyer store, and the drive-through is a convenience that really customers demand. So, add to that?
Yeah, I'll just tack on a little bit to that. The health beauty pharmacy area of our building is where the drive-through is. Why don't you point that out to them, Lonnie? So that's the pharmacy drive up. That corner of our building is health beauty pharmacy. We do things in the pharmacy like consultation rooms. Some areas we do eye doctors. Some we have some, maybe a hearing aid room to test hearing aids. We do a lot of really nice things in our pharmacy. We call it a point of face-to-face contact with our customers. So the drive-through is really something that's relative. I'm sure you all have seen them, with CVS and Walgreens and some different more pharmacy-oriented businesses. It's a drive-through. It's mainly for pickup and drop-off, so people can drop off their scripts and then come back in, an hour or whatever, and they're ready to be picked up. You can call them in, those types of things. So it's a very important part of the business. It's a growing segment of the business, and it's just a customer convenience feature. And it looks like on this plan we have stacking for at least 5 cars in that area leading up to the drive-through window. And so I'd be glad to answer any questions. I will note that, Catherine, you made and I'm sorry I didn't say your last name, but I just didn't want to mess it up. But we heard you last meeting about the landscaping in front of that drive-through area. So we took your advice and we beefed up the landscaping in that area, and we also added a sidewalk, if I'm not mistaken, because you had expressed some concerns about that.
Okay.
Any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
Well, we'll get to the questions in a second. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Okay, we'll close that portion of the public hearing. Now, questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Miss Moritz.
you spoke about the on-demand health services. Are you going to have a minute clinic or
That's
something
really
along those lines?
That's a great question, and we've partnered with a lot of different healthcare providers for our lease space. For example, in our hometown of Grand Rapids, we've partnered with Spectrum Health, who is a large healthcare provider in that area, and they're a leasee of ours in several of our locations. It just depends on the local demand. It's really more market driven, but we have other urgent care facilities within our buildings. I can't say specifically that we'll have one here. It'll be based on demand for the area. And it'll be up to, like, we can either reach out to a provider. We typically have, like, national accounts with some leasing spaces in the front of our stores, like Huntington Bank, USA Bank, Starbucks, Ben's Pretzels, some different things like that. But we do have some urgent care in some of our facilities. I can't say that that'll be, we're probably starting that inline tenant leasing process right now.
Thank you.
Mr. Spence, anything from the administration?
Nope.
Okay. This is for the CUP. You read the staff report. There's the one condition for the CUP for the pharmacy drive-through, which is adherence to the engineer and that type of thing. So you're agreeable to that? Okay, and then basically this is the same as what we did the last go-around.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant or the administration?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. Varga.
Yes, thank you. You submitted this report, the acoustical report?
At this point, we're talking about the drive-through.
Okay. All right, so we're going to...
We'll get to that when we get to that.
Okay, that's fine.
Motion to approve with one condition.
Mr. Sidoti, did you have a question?
Yes, just one question.
Go right ahead.
Once I pull into the drive-through, if for any reason I need to pull out, is there an escape lane or a bypass lane so I can get out?
The short answer is no. You'll have to wait your turn. I mean, the cars move through there fairly quickly. I mean, it's a pretty speedy. We have a goal of trying to service the customer at the window. So if you're in the line and want to leave, you have to wait for the car in front of you to move out of the way. But it's not a long wait.
Okay.
I think we've been asked that question. It's a good question. We've been asked that before. And the issue with trying to really plan for an escape route is trying to prevent, like, conflicts of traffic if someone's coming out and someone's coming in. So we felt like the safest route is to just wait your turn to exit.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Now, Mrs. Simperman.
Motion to approve with one condition.
Second.
Jess.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Valeri.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman.
Yes.
Ms. Moritz.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. Item 5, conditional use permit to allow a building with a height greater than 35 feet at 9200 Menor Avenue.
Thank you. I'll be quick on this one. I think the last time we were in here, we had a prototypical building height of 38 feet 7 inches.
39.
Thank you. 39.7. I stand corrected. So the new prototype, and we've worked on these plans. We continually work on our plans with our architect, and we decided to lower the height of the vestibule area. And you can see it's a slightly flatter kind of pitch than it was in the 1.9 prototype that you saw before. So in doing that, we actually lowered it to 38 feet. So we're only now 3 feet off of your ordinance. That's a real focal point of the building. We use that vestibule area, as a main entrance. It's not the only entrance, but we also do a lot of things in that vestibule area, that are community oriented, with our artwork, our vinyl we put on, the signage we put in, welcome to Meyer of Mentor. A lot of different, we sometimes feature some local artists in that area. So it's an important area of the building. And we think the height is really good. It has a lot of sunlight can get through. So we'd appreciate your support on slightly higher vestibule.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone wishing to speak against? In favor or against?
Sort of against, but not really.
Okay, if you come up and somewhat identify yourself for the clerk.
Neil Moscato, 9237 Cherrystone Drive. And we had no issue with this the last time they were here. The only thing that came up when we were discussing it was it's lit. I just wanted to make sure nothing on the back side is like going at the residential area. Okay, and there's
windows on the back.
and not a lot of light pollution
Or the front only.
coming, not a lot of light pollution coming out of that at night,
No.
like a beacon or anything. Okay, that's my only concern with that. Thank you.
That was an easy one. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, we'll close the public portion. Mr. Spence, any comments from the administration?
Nope.
So we're going from 39.7 to 38. Commission members, any questions?
Chairman Snow?
Yes.
Can you describe more of the collaboration that you speak of with local artists and other local entities to provide?
We have within Meyer, we have a large group of employees that are design employees. And so we're continually working on our imaging in our stores. So we'll come up with something ourselves that we feel like represents your community and we want it because we want it to be a home type store. And there we have collaborated in the past with some local artists that are kind of passionate about that type of thing. It's not always store to store to store that we have the collaboration because a lot of the communities love what we present with our imaging and with some vinyl and some different photography, different things like that. But we'll do everything we can so it's not stark white walls in that vestibule area. It's more a warm, welcoming feel.
By everything you can you just, I'm familiar with Meyer stores as, I lived in the Cincinnati and Dayton area. If you could just elaborate more on how you work with local artists and how you work with the local communities to produce this collaboration, as you call it.
I think we can get into this discussion at a later date. Here we're talking about in this CUP about a 38-foot building height.
I'll be glad to have a conversation with you, kind of offline about it.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of collaboration, not just with artists, but with local youth athletics, collaboration with community fundraising, charitable giving, farmers.
Okay.
There's lots of collaboration with the local communities, food banks, reducing food waste, all those types of things.
And I'm okay with Chairman Snow's recommendation.
So, any more questions? 39-7 to 38.
Motion to approve with one condition.
Second.
Jess, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Valeri?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman?
Yes.
Ms. Moritz?
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic?
Yes.
Mr. Snow?
Yes. Item 6, conditional use permit to allow reduction of the required buffer adjacent to the R3 single-family residential at 9200 Menor Avenue. What?
I would indicate they're not reducing the buffer requirement.
Modification?
It's a modification to the
Okay.
landscape
So then on
requirement.
the agenda, we need to say modification rather than reduction.
Well, in this case, yes, because they're meeting the 50-foot buffer. They're actually taking pavement out.
Okay.
Just a clarification.
Yeah, and I'll go over that because I do want to make that point. With the new site plan and the smaller building, the building's been shifted to the east, just noting that, and we'll get into the site plan more in detail later in the hearing, but we're hoping to keep this green, and we did take out a whole row of parking all along this drive to maintain that 50-foot minimum buffer along the residential. So right now, there's an 8-foot-high wood fence along this property line, and there's really no vegetation, no trees or anything. But there is a 10-foot grade difference between the property line and the driveway. So down to the driveway. So you have that height difference too. Your ordinance has a lot of trees that need to be planted within a 100-foot swath of land, 50 by 100. And our landscape architect looked at it. There's a letter that was enclosed to kind of tell you your ordinance, if you plant those amount of trees in those areas, not all of them will survive. They'll be competing for sunlight and water. And I don't think that's what your ordinance really wants. Screening is what the whole focus is. And with what's shown on our plan, it will screen more than adequately this residential. And again, with also reducing the amount of pavement and shifting the building over from where it existed. You can see the outline of the Kmart building in red. We shifted over, quite a bit. We're adding that additional buffer anyway here. And it is, I think, a third of the plants that are required per your code. There's evergreens planted, I believe, 12 foot on center, one row of those. And then shade trees, 25 foot on center, 2 rows of those. So there's still a significant amount of trees. I know on your comments, you had talked about weeds and underbrush not being allowed per your code. Somebody made that comment, and it was kind of confusing. So I'd like some clarification on that. But what my landscape architect meant by his letter is that you could kind of let that landscaping grow and have natural vegetation, and little trees will start growing between those trees. Being only 12 foot on center or 25 foot on center, that's going to fill in eventually if that's what you want with little maintenance. If you don't allow that and you don't want it to grow to a wooded state, Meyer would just mow around it until those trees grow together, which they will.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Come on back up.
Neil Moscato, Cherry Stone Drive. The Carmen Place landscaping, to me, is fine, pretty dense. I don't live in that area, so I'm not going to comment on it. What I don't understand is why you stop there. I know there's a 5-foot difference in grade, but you've got all of this here where you have nothing going on. But here's your loading dock. Here's all your traffic, and you stopped it. You have
Mr.
nothing.
Moscato, please direct your comments this way.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at where they ended the Carmen Place, if they extended that all the way on the backside, I'd be happy. I don't know why they stopped it where they're going to have so much stuff going on.
Okay, we'll get an answer for that.
Okay. And if we have questions later, I have a couple of questions, too.
Go ahead and ask them now.
Okay. We got rid of our noise ordinance requirement for decibels, and this kind of falls into that area where the loading dock is, which I think affects the buffer area. Part of it for the density of trees, I think, helps that sound issue also.
Okay.
So I don't see why we would back off on that until we had an acceptable plan that was actually looked at by the residents, which I don't know if that's normal or acceptable. I assume these meetings are what that's for. But I'd be against any variance until we get something that we can live with.
Okay. I think Mr. Vargas is going to address that noise later in the meeting.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, the other thing, I assume they're accepting that all of the existing landscaping along that fence line you're not going to address. But a lot of that isn't in good shape anymore. It's reached the end of its life. A lot of it's fallen over and dead. So in that buffer area behind the fence on our side, which I doubt they've looked at, needs to be considered.
Attended to?
What's that?
Needs to be attended to?
Yeah, attended to and rebuilt. That was built 24 years ago when we didn't have this requirement. So that buffer doesn't meet the landscape requirements at all as far as density of plantings.
Mr. Spence, any comments?
Yeah, First Interstate installed that on those people's properties. I think there was an agreement that after a certain time that they were responsible for the maintenance of it. There is an agreement, I just don't have it with me.
Okay.
Right, but that doesn't replace, I don't think, a requirement of a new builder coming in and needing a new buffer. We don't have to meet the city requirement, they do.
Okay.
That's how I look at it. Give me 1 minute.
Take your time.
Thanks. And the fence condition, well, it's in amazing shape for being like 24 years old. It should be looked at and maintained. There are gaps in the boarding, which used to be pretty landscape or soundproof for that use, and now there are a lot of gaps where that should be looked at and maintained a little more. That definitely needs to be addressed. And we did have an agreement, and I don't know if it's on the lighting on the backside. We were going to maintain the height that's existing now. We weren't going to go up any higher since that's pretty much below the level of the fence that's existing. So I think, just to remind you, talked about that. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Anyone else? Sir, if you come up and identify yourself for the clerk, please.
My name is Joe Stalzer, and I live at 9279 Cherry Stone Drive, about 4 houses away from Neil. My concern, and can I get that so I can point on it? Okay, I live right about here. So my concern is...
You're going to need the microphone by you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I live right about there. It's too small a print for me to get the exact address, but that's basically it. So my concern is this building, and maybe I'm premature with my questions, is this building going to maintain the distance between where Kmart currently ends and the property on the back part of it? Is it going to be closer to our homes? I also have concern about a noise factor where the loading dock's going to be. And right now, First Interstate put some padding, some acoustic padding on the back of the fence on their side. Is that going to still be included? Another concern is the height of lighting, as Neil expressed. When that first opened, I had people from Interstate in my upstairs bedroom working on the lights. They had someone in my home on a walkie-talkie and someone up on a standard and a lift working the lights just to turn it so it doesn't shine in my bedrooms. So, those are my questions. Like I said, maybe these are preliminary plans. I haven't seen the final plans, but I just want to take the opportunity to express my concern as a neighbor. And once again, I'm right there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Dennis Crawl. I'm Joe's neighbor on Cherry Stone. I have the same concerns about the condition of the existing fence, the security or the noise fence, and some of the landscaping is really in not very good condition. So I agree with them, and I just want to bring that point up.
Sir, do you have an address there on Cherry Stone?
9271.
9271. Thank you. Mr. Zeman, question for you. Anyone else wishing to speak first? Okay, we'll close the public portion. Question for you, the agreement that First Interstate had with the neighbors on the maintenance, how long does that last? Maybe you don't know. I mean, you'd have to see it. I guess you'd have to see it to answer those questions.
Never. That predates my tenure with the city. I've never seen that agreement,
Okay.
so we'd have to review
So
that.
we'll need to get a copy of that, or you'll need to get a copy of that, and we can make the adjustments accordingly. Mr. Spence, any comments back from the administration?
One, the building, I don't think it's any further closer to the Cherry Stone property lines. Actually, the parking that was back there, they've got rid of some of the drive aisle that used to slant back by the loading docks, so they meet the 50-foot buffer requirement.
Okay. So any comments back from you guys?
Well, just to add to Rick's comments, you can see this green area right here is noted there. I don't know if you can read it, but I know it's kind of small. It says pavement removed. So we're eliminating some of the asphalt that's back here and creating green space.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Any comments relative to the landscaping continuing a little farther to the west along the fence area?
To the east.
I believe that was
To the east.
I'm sorry, to the east.
Yeah, I'll address that a little bit.
I got turned around for a second.
It's easy to do.
Yeah.
Okay, to address the comment about the landscaping, we did try to fill in the landscaping. As you can see, this area here was behind the existing Kmart truck dock area. They have docks on this side and docks on this side. Our new dock is just right here, catty corner, so it is only on one side. Where there was pavement here to go around their dock, we're actually eliminating that and putting trees. There's a existing sound wall from this point to this point, and then also the additional grade change with another fence up along here. You can see we did try to fill in where there is ample space to plant more trees. There is a slope there, and I did submit pictures within your packet. This, so you know, is on the, can't see it that well,
I
but
can zoom in.
on the east or west side of the Kmart building, that's the view there. And this is as you're going east. Yeah, sorry. And, the first gentleman's comment about why did we stop the trees here? That's because the trees look like that right where we stopped them. There's a significant amount of trees right in this corner here.
No, there's not.
I have a picture. I have a picture in the wintertime.
No, we're not going to get into
I'm
it.
sorry.
No debating.
That's where it ends. There's nothing there. Well, we can meet sometime, but there's nothing there.
I'll say this, if there's voids in there, we're going to plant them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the bottom line. If there's a void that can put a tree there, we're going to put one in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're good there.
And, over here, the existing Kmart building was a auto center, right? This section right here. Of course, that's being eliminated. We have no auto center. And this garden center is not accessed on this side. It's accessed only in the front here.
Okay.
So, the noise reduction in this area should be minimized.
So if we had a condition in there that where there's a void, you'll plant some trees?
I love architects and engineers, don't get me wrong. But these kind of decisions are made in the field. If the landscape architect or the landscape provider is out there in the field and said, this is where a tree needs to go, not here, it's on the plan, that's where we're going to put it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you can see the 50-foot buffer line on our plan. And we did try to plant trees in those areas.
So where we need to add trees,
in
you'll
that
add the
50-foot
trees?
buffer line,
Okay.
yes.
That can be a condition because that's what we do anyway.
Okay. I think we'll make it a condition. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Valeri.
on that note, as we're talking, speaking of your landscape architect, so everything's going to be fighting. I guess I'm not seeing in here what the recommendation for the reduction is.
Modification.
Modification.
It's actually, what do you mean? You don't see it? It's
Quantity,
actually,
number.
oh, it's in his letter.
To 56 trees, I'm seeing. I guess my point is if we can validate the number and just relocate those trees to other places, I think it's going to solve a lot of the concerns for the residents who live behind there. So I think it piggybacks on your statement. If there's a void, we'll plant a tree. But as long as we can repurpose the quantity and put them someplace else, and I think that's acceptable.
Yes, we'd have to find a place to put them. There's, put them in here, but
But I think some of the residents said that there's some stuff that may be dying or dead, regardless of who planted it and when. If we can focus and tackle that, right, wrong, or indifferent. If the resident said, it's on his property, it's an old agreement, I think it'd be an extremely goodwill gesture.
it's actually on his property.
I'm not positive exactly where or who planted.
Where there's a void, you'll fill it in?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
And I think he's asking on which side of the fence. But I think that harkens back to the agreement that may be in place out there.
We'll need to see a copy.
Right.
The law director will have to dig into that and see what the agreement actually says.
Right.
Not disputing what it says, but, we need to be privy to what it says, so. Mrs. Zimmerman, did you have a comment?
Well, actually, that was one of my questions, but I'm trying to figure out how we're going to pursue that with the law director. Are we going to make that a condition? Are we going to table this until we can find out the answer?
What we're talking about now is the modification to the buffer. So I think that can go forward.
Except that
Because
if it's
we're modifying the plan as it was originally submitted, correct?
Well, this plan was submitted last time, and when we changed the building, we're coming in now
Right.
for that.
For the same thing.
Correct.
Right. So I think this is a two-part question. I think there's the modification to what was originally approved, and then I think there's the second question is the agreement that existed between First Interstate and the residents adjacent to the building.
Correct. I haven't seen it. To the extent
know.
the city even has enforcement authority over that
Well,
agreement, I don't even have.
I think we need to see the agreement, or
Let's take a
somebody
look at
needs.
it.
Maybe it's you.
Correct, but that's a separate enforcement action. Again, that affects private property interests and obviously the former First Interstate. Made some promises.
Guess at it. I think we should
Again,
see
I don't know.
maybe there's an enforcement action that's written into the agreement.
So it's possible, or the city may not even be have standing to do that. Those
Okay.
are all open questions that
Okay.
until I see the agreement, I don't.
Okay. Do we know where we can get a copy of the agreement?
I've seen it.
Okay.
That doesn't mean we can.
I've seen it, if I can find it again.
Mrs. Simperman?
So on a different note, your landscape architect had mentioned the volunteer species that will move into the area quickly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's one of the conditions we have, is that we don't want to see the weeds and the other things growing up. I kind of like your idea of let's maintain it underneath the trees until they're tall enough that nothing else is going to grow there. Could we agree to have grass planted there until and have that maintained?
Absolutely.
I think that's what we're looking at. We don't want to see, and I'm sure you don't either.
Right.
And I'm sure that wasn't his intention. But I understand once the trees get tall enough, nothing's going to grow there, and we understand that. But until that time, if we could maintain that area, that would be great. Okay, so you're okay with maintaining the area, okay? And you're also okay with replacing any existing trees that need to be replaced or that are diseased or damaged. So you're willing to maintain any trees that are in that buffer area.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then. And that would be okay if we made it as a condition, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Totally fine.
As well as the maintenance
Yes.
underneath the trees, okay. And then a few of the residents were commenting on the disrepair of the fence. So you wouldn't mind having that as a condition, that repair and maintenance of the fence
Totally fine. Absolutely.
is incurred.
We want it to look nice.
I'm
Well,
sure you do.
I mean, it's a multi-million-dollar project.
I understand that, but sometimes these things get lost in the shuffle, so I just want to make sure that we have them all in there. That's all I had as far as maintenance.
Chairman Snow?
Ms. Moritz?
I have a point of clarification. Are you actually, is there actually a reduction being requested, or is it just a modification to the development plan?
Mr. Spence?
It would be a modification to the amount of the plantings.
So what?
There's no reduction in the 50-foot buffer that's required. The buffer ordinance requires so many plantings per 100 lineal feet, including shade trees, conifers, and so forth. And if you look at the amount of plantings that are required per our ordinance and tried to plant them in that area, they would not grow. There are too many plants. So their landscape architect said the same thing. So what they did was, along Carmen Place was a row of evergreens and then two rows of shade trees. In that space, those trees, that's adequate number of trees for that area. You can, our ordinance needs revised on that aspect. It comes from a book from 1984, and I think it was written by a college professor and not a landscape architect, because every landscape architect I've talked to, there's no way you
It's
can
too
get
much?
that. It's too much.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion with Mrs. Simperman's 12 conditions.
Yes, that is correct. So motion to approve with the area beneath the landscaping shall be grass and maintained. That the existing and proposed landscaping in the buffer shall be maintained in perpetuity. That any fencing that needs to be repaired will be repaired and maintained in perpetuity. Is that everything?
I second.
There's only three.
Okay.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Valeri?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman?
Yes.
Ms. Moritz?
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic?
Yes.
Mr. Snow?
Yes. Okay, item 7, code amendments to Chapter 1162 by the City of Mentor. Mr. Rose.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. The administration is proposing an amendment to Chapter 1162 This is a good follow-up to our previous discussion. This is we'd like to update the landscaping, screening, and buffering code, specifically in the residential areas. We are asking for a provision that requires 50% ground cover on all residential lots. This would be done as a supplemental requirement for residential parcels, which would be a new section, which would be 1162.081.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments from the administration?
That was good.
Pretty succinct, I guess, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commission members, questions for Mr. Rose?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just
Mr. Perkovic?
Question. Just is this coming about to sort of combat on occasion we see where the lot is 100% stones with weeds growing through? Is that essentially what we're trying to?
Well, what has happened is we've had some properties within the city that have converted their front yards to something other than some ground cover. There was a property maintenance case that went to court, and the decision did not fall on the city's side due to the vagueness of the current ordinance, which was outlined in the short staff report. So what we decided to do was to create a more specific residential requirement or landscaping requirement for residential parcels, which outlines this a little better.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Moritz?
Does this apply to all residential properties and all residential districts?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Mr. Snow?
Mr. Varga?
And the term ground cover, that includes grasses and other kinds of, like ivy or something like that?
Yes, sir. The
Things that are
specific
green?
the specific definition of ground cover means any ornamental plant or grass which grows along the ground. So you could
Okay.
put pachysandra, grass, ivy.
Okay. I just want to be clear that for everyone's
Yes, sir.
purposes, what
Yes, sir.
ground cover meant.
That definition's in the ordinance.
Okay, anything else? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Jess, when you're ready.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Valeri?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman? Yes. Ms. Moritz?
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic?
Yes.
Mr. Snow?
Yes. Item 8, the applicant has asked that remain on the table. Is that correct, Mr. Spence?
That's correct.
So I'll need a motion to table item 8.
Motion to table.
Second.
Jess?
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Valeri?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman?
Yes.
Ms. Moritz?
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic?
Yes.
Mr. Snow?
Yes. Under old business, items 9, 10, 11, and 12 were tabled at the previous meeting, will remain on the table this evening. That takes us to new business, which is item 13, preliminary site plan of a commercial building at 9200 Menor Avenue.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Valeri.
In regards to a couple of the items that are tabled, I just have a question for the administration. It's September already. Weather's going to drastically change. It's going to snow soon.
Please.
It's gonna. I mean,
No.
there's a handful of these items that are being tabled, which potentially can be weather permitting in regards to screening and some other items. What can we do to help expedite these so we don't find ourselves in a position where we can't do anything till next year with them?
Which item are you talking about?
The Jersey barriers and the screening at so number 12 and where's the Jersey barriers? 11 and 12. Both of those items, potentially, we're going to find ourselves in a weather permitting case.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
It's the Planning Commission's prerogative to table an item or for it to be heard. Now, obviously, if often we have applicants previously scheduled on vacation or something like that, they can't make it. But ultimately, it's the Planning Commission's determination that something is going to go forward on a specific date in the absence of some extraordinary circumstance. So, if it's the Commission's judgment tonight that these things shall be heard at the next meeting, we can communicate that to the applicants that no further requests for tabling will be entertained.
I think that's appropriate.
Thank you.
So, Okay?
Yes, I would like to make that recommendation that the applicants are told that we would like to hear them at the next meeting.
That's right. No more delays. Sometimes, not necessarily these particular items, but sometimes these items languish and languish and languish, and eventually they get withdrawn. But if these are going to move ahead, we need to have them move ahead. So I think that's an appropriate comment, Mr. Valeri. So back to the new business, 9200 Menor Avenue. Making your money tonight, huh? I didn't get a denial on that, did I?
She does charge by the hour, that's for sure. I think I touched on most of the changes in my earlier presentation. Just to reiterate a few things based on the comments we heard from the public, and I'd like to point out there's a lot more green space on this site than is currently there, and you can see that we're removing hundreds of parking spaces from the shopping center. Now, the way maybe I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, but some of the parking that's being turned into green is being banked, because it's banked parking area, particularly, this area right here. I think that's somewhat at the discretion of the city if it needs to be paved based on parking demand. But, we have 260 of these stores in communities across our Midwestern states. And we analyze our parking, annually, really. And so you can see it's a nicely landscaped center to begin with. First Interstate deserves some credit for that. We've bought 3 Kmarts in the past 12 months. None of them look as good as this project. So we have a good place to start with. And most of the communities we go to and I speak at are concerned with green space, lighting, noise. And we're doing everything possible to further reduce or increase green space, the relocation of the truck dock. We did a sound study by a professional acoustic person. We just feel like what we're doing in the rear of the store where we adjoin residential is a much improved project than that's there currently. Now, so I hope we can, get some, not asking for credit, but just, there's a little bit of kudos for a nice project before you tonight. The reduced size of the building also adds to the green space. The amount of employees we employ does not reduce just because of the building reduced. We still employ 250 to 300 employees, and the only reason there's a range on that is it depends on the labor market as to how many full-time employees we can get versus how many part-time people we ultimately hire.
Chairman Snow.
Ms. Moritz.
Can you, I'm sorry if you addressed this, but can you talk about the difference of the footprint between the Meijer store that you're proposing and the current Target or the current Kmart location?
Yeah, the Kmart is larger than the
You've
Mars.
said that. Can you give me like a square footage?
The Kmart that exists is 211,000 square feet, and our store is 159,000 square feet. Maybe a little change to that. 259. 159, 253 on our square footage.
Okay. Mr. Spence, any comments from the administration?
Nope.
So we're going down from 195 to 159. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, actually 199 to 155.
I'm sorry. A lot of numbers floating around.
It is. Right. And keep in mind, it's not 159,000 square feet of sales area. I mean, there's probably 20% that
I'm just following up on Ms. Moritz's question about the size of the Kmart versus the size of your original proposal than the size of this current proposal, so.
Yes, sir.
Commission members, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Simperman?
So the administration is talking about the electrical pad and that it has a chain link fence around it? A chain link fence around the electrical pad? Okay, so we have an ordinance that all ground or roof-mounted mechanical units need to be fully screened? Okay.
And there will be slats in the chain link fence to screen that.
Okay, so that is, okay. And how about on the roof-mounted? Do you have any roof-mounted units?
There are roof-mounted units, and on the front and sides of the buildings, there's parapets. And on the rear, because of the height of the vegetation and the mounding that's in place, you won't be able to see those rooftop units. I took pictures and also submitted those.
Does that count, Mr. Spence?
They just had to be screened, is how your code reads.
From off-site views.
So since the rear of the building is residentially viewed, does that count with the vegetation and such?
Well, if the residential units can see them, yeah, they need to be screened, but if they can't see them.
Okay, so we'll make that determination at the appropriate time.
Well,
we're going
you wanna talk
to invoke the lake health rule.
If you tried to put a parapet to screen those, your parapet would be 18 foot high, 20 foot high.
I don't think anybody's saying it has to be a parapet, right?
Well,
We've done some fencing around them on the rooftops.
on the rooftop. Well, you can't see them anyway.
Okay, we can address that. We can address that at the appropriate times.
Okay.
You wouldn't have any objection to the condition being, it's part of our ordinances anyway, but you wouldn't be adverse to having a condition that says all ground or roof-mounted shall be, mechanical units should be screened from off-sites.
Without any specification on the type of screening? Just staff would approve it, or how do we?
I'm just reading the ordinance.
Well, this is a preliminary, that needs to be done as part of final.
So we'll put it as a condition and you can deal with it at final.
Okay.
How's that sound?
There are
I
systems.
don't know if we want to wait that long.
There are screening systems that are made specifically for screening rooftop units.
Mr. Varga, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, I cut you off earlier in the meeting.
Yeah. Well, cut me off now.
I think we're at that point of the agenda. You can make your comment now.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to add to that part. Of the
I may cut you off
conversation.
anyway, though. But
I understand. No offense.
None taken.
No, we want a fence.
Yeah. On a different subject, after the last presentation you made, I had close to half a dozen people come up to me afterwards, and their number one concern was sound, was noise. They stated that the existing, with all the work that had been done with the existing Kmart situation, still was not acceptable. That was still an annoyance to those people who lived behind there. I went through your acoustical study, and it's all fine, except that there was one section that was not encompassed in your study that is a requirement. The city's called it out. It's the section, paragraph D, which specifically addresses loading docks, the movement of trucks, and the movement of materials. And that does not have, tell me if I'm wrong, that does not have a maximum sound limit, whereas these other three, ABC, the ones that have been used in the study, they do have what's called the level of sound that would be common public voice communications, about 60 decibels. Internal personal communications are between 40 and 50 decibels. In any case, the point is that the truck deliveries is the number one issue, number one problem. Just a few observations about the study that I just wanted to throw out. I don't want to get into a big debate about it, but The point of origin for the sound was based on the center of the loading dock area, but there's a truck that'll be at least 25 feet closer to the property, which will change the acoustics of that situation. It'll be a little bit noisier. I'm sure the farthest truck will be much more quiet than the one closest to the property line. The study should look at the closest source of sound rather than the furthest or the middle. Being that that's the case, and the city has appointed this other requirement that's not in your report, I'm just going to suggest that you think about, instead of getting into a big conversation about a fence or something, and I suggested this the last time you were here, I don't know if you remember this, of taking that back wall, running it past the loading dock. The best place to knock sound down is as close to the source as possible. So you have a fence there now where there's a change in grade, where the loading dock goes down into grade and there's a fence. If you can build a wall there, it's going to significantly help the resolution of that sound. I don't know of anything else you could do that would mitigate the sound more than doing that. Even the study here showed a number of spikes above the 60 decibel level. I don't know if you're going to limit the truck deliveries to only daylight times. I don't think you would. So let's just kind of sidestep the whole problem of whether the chart shows spikes above 60 decibels or whether the sound really should be 40 to 50. Let's think about a physical constraint to the sound that will knock it down right from the beginning. That's my suggestion. Okay. And I'd like to make it a requirement, but we'll see if everyone agrees.
I think you made an excellent point. I would like to point out that this store has one less dock. So we have 6 loading docks at this location as opposed to 7 on the 1.9 that was before you last time. And if you look on the plan that's up on the screen, you'll see a truck that's parked right there, and that's a recycling truck. So that truck stays there without a cab until there's until it's full of recycled cardboard, whatever we're recycling. So that leaves 5 truck bays. There's 6, but one there's a truck at basically 365 days a year. So it leaves really 5 that are more actively used.
Just for everyone's understanding of what I was just suggesting. Putting a wall here, extended past the dock, to mitigate the sound movement from that direction.
Mm-hmm. There is one there.
There can be a truck right here, and that's still okay.
I also want to make a point that it's a depressed dock, which means it goes down.
No, I understand.
So with the movement of trucks going down, there is a wall.
Well, it's only 3.5 feet high. Right, I understand. That's the depth of the deck, but the motor and the exhausts, the sound inside the cab is all above that level.
Chairman Snow.
Let's just be sure. Are you finished?
Yeah, well, I like I say, I don't quite want to get into a debate about
I understand.
It's just that's the number one issue.
Mm-hmm. And since this is a preliminary plan this evening, you have time between...
You have time to respond to it, but I'm strongly suggesting you just mitigate that problem that completely at that location. That's my recommendation.
Okay. Ms. Moritz.
I just wanted to second that. I had gotten similar comments from as Commissioner Varga about the noise mitigation from the loading docks, and I feel that some kind of sound barrier would be appropriate. And my ancillary question would be that when we saw, I think it was you, a little earlier this year, we were talking about a late 2018 demolition, and I was wondering about the timeline of the demolition of the current Kmart and the construction of a new Meijer?
I wanted to address a couple more issues on the sound, but it is a point well taken, and we've heard your comment. But I did want to say a couple things to keep in mind with our project. Our truck dock is further away from the neighbors than currently. That in today's world, turning a truck is extremely important. You know, when diesel's $2.50 a gallon, we turn a truck. We have a driver drop off a truck, pull away in a truck in 4 minutes. So they're not idling overnight. They're not there for extended periods of time. They have 4 minutes to get in and out, and they leave the dock to be unloaded without a cab sitting in front of it. I still hear your points, but I think some of these items like rooftop units, I mean, there's so many fewer rooftop units on buildings in today's world. We put 10,000 ton units on roofs. They're a third of the units that are on roofs. A third of the RTUs that there used to be in these. I've been doing this 27 years. So some of these things go back to like 27 years ago, but things have changed over time. But again, I appreciate your comment, and we'll study it.
Can I address a few things, Mr. Jeffrey? That noise study that was done, I just want to point out, was done on the larger store, because that was done before Meijer changed to the smaller store. So that's 192,000 square feet. And to address your question of why they did the sound from the center of the dock to the property line, it was because when they modeled that at the Evansville, Indiana store, they had no idea which dock the truck would pull into. So it's a center of sound.
I understand, but if the one closest to the property was used, it would increase the sound mitigation.
Not if the truck was on the other side. Not knowing where the truck would pull in. See, what they did was they set up a sound, a tool or a device that measured the amount of sound that comes from the truck area, and they put it in the center, knowing that the trucks would pull on either side, around. That's how they modeled and generated the sound.
My point was only that the closer you are to the houses, the louder the sound is going to be.
Correct. You're correct, but they only use that to set baseline sound. That's my point.
I understand.
And also, so on this new plan layout, the truck pattern is the trucks will come into this driveway, pull back into this truck dock area, and leave that same way. In the previous Kmart scenario, the trucks had to go all the way around the store on both sides of the store. So, and now that we've moved the building to the east, now the truck dock area is actually behind the existing sound wall. And that noise study that was done does not consider the sound wall there.
Yeah. I'm just...
So we have time.
So
yeah.
You
what
have
do you
time.
want us to do? I mean...
Well, I guess, let me answer. She's asking me. I guess what I'm asking you to do, I think a number of us may have brought it up, is that the number one issue, the building is nice, everyone is very excited about the project, but the number one issue for the community that's a negative is sound. And so I'm asking you to aggressively mitigate that problem.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rose has a comment.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Having been to other Meijer stores, and I'm going to put my code enforcement hat on, because you're going to have a permanent recycle truck in spot number 1. Where's the empty going to sit while number 1 is getting filled up? Because you're not going to wait 24 hours and have a full recycle truck. And my concern is, about 6 weeks before Black Friday, you're going to start bringing in all your extra Christmas cargo. Where are you going to stack all of your extra trailers with only 5 loading docks? You can't store them in the front, with all due respect.
We can, not to be smart, but we can bring our materials in by helicopter. You know, I mean, everything that comes into a store comes in on truck. Every store in America.
Yes, sir. But
to answer your question, and not to, I'll try to. When that recycling truck is full, it gets pulled away and another one gets put in its place.
No, I understand that, sir, but I think my point is what we're looking for is we don't want storage in the front setback, and if you put the empty trailer waiting for the swap there a day or 2 days or 3 days in advance, it's sitting in the front setback of the store.
I'm not sure what a front setback of the store is, but
No.
May I approach the drawing?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
What?
If the trucks are coming in here and they're in this loading dock here, but you've got trucks that are waiting, or you've got more trucks than you can
move your head
clear.
just a little bit.
Thank you.
Move your head a little bit.
Move your head a little bit.
Sorry.
Swing around.
How's this?
That's good.
That's better.
Okay. If you've got 5 trucks here and you've got your recycle truck is almost full, where is that other extra trailer waiting for the swap out? That tractor trailer is going to bring in a trailer. He's got to put that trailer somewhere, and there's no room behind the store. There's no room on the side of the store. So inevitably, what you're going to see is what we have at a local furniture store here in town, where there's no room in the back from a plan that was done years ago, and you end up stacking all of your tractor trailers on one end of the parking lot along the avenue. There is another big box store
Or down the side.
that has got them
Side
tucked.
drive.
Right. And I'm trying to figure out where I understand. I'm a longtime transportation guy before I started this line of work. I understand transportation very well. Everything's coming in here by truck. I get that. The question is, 6 weeks before Black Friday, you're going to have more tractor trailers than you can handle in a 24-hour period. So you're going to be stacking them
somewhere.
And this is the front setback. The front edge of your store is the front setback. So you can't store any trailers or trucks out here. It's one thing to have them in the queue for an hour. It's another thing to have the tractors dropping off trailers and they're there for 2 or 3 or 4 days, and it's just a constant rotation. We have this in the city, and it's...
Andy, microphone.
I can hear it.
We have this in the city, and it's a concern. So I just wanted to address this now during preliminary, because there's nowhere to stack trailers waiting to be loaded or waiting to be picked up once they're offloaded. Thank you.
We've been doing this 85 years. We've been in business since 1932. We own every single truck that makes a delivery to a Meijer store.
So we're not having a problem.
We don't. It's the first I've heard of stacking, in a front setback of. We make a lot of deliveries. I won't kid you. We sell a lot of stuff, and we want it to be fresh, and we want the vegetables to be fresh every morning. And when the store opens up, we want it to be fully stocked and all bins full. So we make a lot of deliveries.
As Mr. Rose pointed out, we've got a couple of locations in the city where it's become problematic. And so I think Mr. Rose just wanted to bring it to your attention that that's not an acceptable solution to parking trucks. So that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Simperman.
Okay, so we're still talking noise. You have your recycling truck. It's now. Does that make noise? Do you have a compactor in there or anything that makes noise, or it's just an empty semi trailer? Could we place that on the side closest to the residence? Why is it the farthest one? I'm thinking that might help with some of the sound mitigation.
When it was being discussed, I thought the same thing, but I'd like to talk to my
right. Okay,
my operations people about that.
Okay, so you've already thought of that.
It may be where it is because it's closest to the compactor.
Right, right.
So let me ask that question
Okay.
of my operations folks.
And, I think I agree with Mr. Varga. We're talking a lot, but he mentioned a brick wall. And, in the big scheme of things, I don't think that that's going to break Meyer. So think
No,
about
but
that.
It's we feel like we did the ordinance. We met the ordinance. We did the sound study. We meet the sound study. So I think that's why I'm getting a little frustrated is because we did those undertakings.
I appreciate them, too. I think you guys did a wonderful job.
Sometimes feel like it's a little bit. I agree to do this and that, and then let's do, what else can we pile on here? So
Right.
I'm feeling a little bit frustrated with that.
So I wanted to tell you that kudos on the landscaping plan, and thank you for listening to us before. On your sound study, I noticed that the largest peak occurred around 6 o'clock in the morning, and I presume that's when you're saying you're bringing your fresh produce in?
Yeah.
Is there any chance we could change it to 7?
I don't think so.
No?
What happens is you have two types of deliveries. You have direct service deliveries, which are bread, eggs, pop, beer, that come and they're really waiting to. They usually park and then they're bringing things in on hand trucks. They're not really necessarily at the dock door. So those are the folks that show up kind of. They got other deliveries to make, so they're usually at our places, fairly early in the morning. And that's that area Lonnie is pointing to. So, no, there's no way we can control, because you're asking us to call Pepsi and say you can't be at our store before, 7 a.m. That just won't happen. I'd love to say yes, but it's just not it's not feasible.
Chairman Snow?
Ms. Moritz.
I had asked before about the timing of construction, and when we talked about earlier about the lease that Meyer had with the Kmart stores and the timing of the demolition.
Oh, sorry. I meant to answer your question.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, our plan is to demo the building this winter and start construction in the spring of 18.
Thank you.
See, we've got one opportunity to get this right. And that's why I think you're getting a little bombarded and getting a little frustrated with these questions. But as you can appreciate, we have one opportunity to get this right, and we want to be sure we do.
No, I can appreciate the comments.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Simperman?
And maybe the administration can help me, because I thought that we had an ordinance where you could not have deliveries between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m.
I'm checking that now, ma'am.
We're getting that code out. The other item, sort of piggybacking on what Mr. Rose indicated, is the garden centers have become seasonal problems for code enforcement. They seem to be underbuilt for the peak season. And so we get into a situation, just for my representatives' understanding, that we don't allow our parking lots, the front sidewalk, to be basically, storage or display areas. There's not storage sheds lined up along the parking lot or lawnmowers and, the front sidewalk. When you go to other communities and you see that type of thing, that's not what the city of Mentor is all about. We want the most clean, organized, well-built, environment we can get, and that's contrary to that. So when Mr. Rose mentions these enforcement items, it's because other retailers do it. They just seem to inevitably underbuild for their peak needs, and garden centers in particular. So I would just recommend some discussion as to whether or not, in fact, the garden center is sized appropriately for peak season, and whether or not we're going to get storage containers or whatnot adjacent to it, because I'm trying to think of when it hasn't been an issue for an outdoor garden center, and I'm not coming up with any examples where we haven't had some enforcement action.
We're aware of the ordinance that there's no outdoor display permitted under the ordinance, so we won't have any.
Okay. Get that. Write that down.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mrs.
While Mr. Rose is looking that up, I just had a question on the drawing here. Towards the north end of the parking lot, you have purple bushes and a yellow area. What's that?
That is the new location for the bus stop, Lake Tran. It used to be on this side of the building previously.
Yeah, okay.
And we moved it more central, so.
And there's no reason they're purple bushes?
No.
Oh, okay.
They are actually ornamental trees.
Okay, and then on the west side of the building, I know you've answered this question once before. Is that a cart corral?
This is for cart storage.
Okay.
And there's a continuous row of hedges planted there.
Okay, and then on the elevation view, I saw a fence on the west side of the store. And is that the loading dock fence that I'm seeing?
This fence?
Well, that's there, and then it's also on the, it's also on
Front elevation.
the front elevation.
This and this. That is the fence on top of the retaining wall where the dock area
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sidoti.
What advantage, if any, was it for Kmart to hold on to at leasehold interest this long?
Well, it's really, they didn't have much of a choice because they had signed a 25-year lease when they initially entered into the agreement. So the agreement is not at its expiry yet. It's not that they've chosen to hold on. It's just it doesn't expire until 2020.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Are you ready?
Yes, sir, my apologies. 531.02, Section B, 1, D is in Delta. Sound originating from a location other than the point of reception caused by loading, unloading, opening, closing, or other handling of boxes, crates, containers, building materials, garbage cans, or similar objects, and moving, backing, maneuvering of motor vehicles can't be done between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. That's codified in the code.
Can be or can't be?
Cannot. Between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Didn't we run into some problems in the past on Plaza Boulevard with some of those retailers that are up there?
Yes.
I think we did.
Right. What it is that
Actually, you have 15 minutes during those time frames, but you have to stay within a normal conversational tone, which is about 65 decibels.
Okay. Go ahead.
It's to address, again, a noise disturbance in mid-afternoon is not necessarily the same, would not necessarily create a, reverse that. A noise disturbance. What may be a noise disturbance at 5 a.m. may not be a noise disturbance at noon. So that's why there is, when you're adjacent to a residential area.
I think we ran into that with one of the automotive retailers adjacent to some condos.
Yeah, what happened was the car loader, the car transports. That was a significant wake-up call in the morning when they were coming in.
Mr. Chairman, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to try to clarify. So they are allowed to they're allowed to have a delivery for a 15-minute period of time as long as it does not go above the 60 decibel.
Well, you can. I'm sorry.
Mr. Rose?
You can operate as long as you want, as long as you don't break 65 decibels between
9 and 7.
9 and 7. That's normal conversational tone is usually defined. It's somewhere between 60 and 70 decibels. For me, normal conversational tone is 90.
Well, yes, we know that.
For the average person, it's 60.
What was the 15 minutes for?
The 15 minutes, that's the amount of time you can exceed the normal conversational tone.
Okay, so they're talking
After
about...
15 minutes, that's at the point where you could be able to contact someone from the city to come enforce that.
So they're talking about being able to unload, get out of there from their report in 6 minutes. They would adhere to that code.
15 minutes.
Well, 15 minutes is what is allowed, but I was told here that it takes, you told me 4 minutes, and I saw 6 minutes in the report. So if they were in and out in 6 minutes...
They're legal.
They're legal. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Valeri.
For the applicant, just going in a little bit different direction, parking spaces, the 183,000 that you're basing the 736 is off of the existing or the proposed box and your future expansion?
Let us just confirm that. That sounds exactly right, but let me just look at the.
183,628 is what it's showing minimum parking
total
for the
Square
total.
footage.
Yeah.
183,628
Okay.
for the future.
Includes that
Okay.
potential 24,375 square feet.
And this is a little bit of a stretch. Is there any opportunity that next time you come, you can kind of show us what a potential future expansion could look like? I know you don't have somebody, I mean, it could be a single box, two box, I mean, whatever it could look like. Just a total site plan would be somewhat nice to kind of include for us.
Well, it's kind of dashed really lightly on here. Can you see it?
It is.
There's a footprint
Yeah,
of where the building would go.
I know, but I feel as though we've asked for
Well-
other times to show kind of a master site plan of what something could look like. I mean, is it going to be a freestanding building? Is it going to be attached? Anything that you can get.
I think that wouldn't that depend on what kind of tenant you have?
Of course, but
Well,
they can give us something.
well, they
besides
could
the dash.
give us something, but I'm suggesting at some point it's going. What if it doesn't turn out to be that?
It's
Well, they'd
gonna
have to
change.
come back for a preliminary
I
and
know.
final site plan for that building addition.
Exactly.
So I think we'd see it.
So what I'm
We
being
don't-
told is no.
Well,
Huh?
we don't want to get into the what you
Yeah.
said. You told us that it's going to look like this, and it doesn't look like that.
A simple no works.
Okay, no.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are we done? Motion?
Sure.
Motion to approve with, I'm adding a seventh condition, which was the all-ground and/or roof-mounted mechanical units need to be fully screened from off-site views. And then just want to make sure that number 3, you have to adhere to the noise ordinances, which we've been talking about. And that was it.
Okay.
Second.
Jess.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Valeri.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman.
Yes.
Ms. Moritz.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Item 14, architectural review of a commercial building at 7377 Lakeshore. Told everybody you'd be home by 8, right?
Hi, my name's Whitney Allen. My husband, Michael. We've been the owner of the 306 Lounge for 20 years now. We're trying to update our building, which is time-worn and dingy. It is 54 years old. It is scary for women to come into lunch. They won't do it. We're trying to refresh it and make it clean and beautiful and friendly and nice.
Okay.
I'm not sure why we had to come here today exactly. Just trying to get a
Because we
building
want to meet you.
permit. Come on down. I'll buy you a little breakfast.
Oops, no. Can't do that. So, Mr. Spence, any comments from the administration relative to the architectural treatment? That's why you're here, by the way, is the architectural treatment and the upgrades that you want to do to the, we have jurisdiction over that type of activity, so. Mr. Spence, any comments?
Well, the only comment would be that they want to paint the existing face brick this color, whatever. Cloudburst.
What are the other colors?
I can see it. I guess my question is, we like brick. We don't like to see brick painted necessarily, so what else can we do there?
I don't believe we can do anything, actually. I've driven around the city and looked and looked and looked, and I'm not a stucco kind of person, and I don't want white brick. I don't want to own a white castle, It's just very old and tired.
I understand.
I mean, my husband was a bricklayer for 20-some years, and he was usually the first one to say, you don't paint brick. But in this exact case at this point, at this building, it is time. It is, like I said, it is time-worn and dingy. We're trying to cover up the nasty air conditioning. We have 3 units up top, and every time I pull in, that's all I see.
I know.
And it's just horrible. And, I look at the other businesses in town, like TGI Fridays has been there for 20-some years, and they got to refresh and update, and I'm just asking to do the same.
Okay. Commission members, questions for the applicant?
Chairman Snow,
Ms. Moritz?
do you have any plans to change the signage? Or
Yes, we do. I've been in work
that
with
included here?
in Ileana. We haven't put in a permit yet.
Okay.
It was a half digital and a half another sign, but me and her have not found exactly something that we're both agreeing on yet. She keeps giving us new pictures.
And is your building, it does not look, but is it contiguous with any other building in the shopping center?
No, it's a freestanding building.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Simperman?
I think the parapet and the hip roof overhang looks great. I think the fact that you want to cover that unit up top, great. Can we come up with a different color? I really don't want that color. And I'm in agreement with you. I really don't like painted brick either, but I might be more inclined to more of a brown.
I mean, it's nasty brown now.
Well, we could, maybe make it a little bit nicer, but blue is really extravagant. So I like everything. I'm just not sure about the color.
Right, and we are in a district with another bar and grill, which is almost the same color blue here. It's almost a little grayer than this blue, but, if they're allowed to do it, I should be allowed to do it as well. You know what I mean?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Varga?
What are the other colors of the...
The wood brackets are going to be like a creamish color, and then the awning or the canopy, they would call it, will be shingled in charcoal asphalt, and that would be the only colors.
And the vertical face of the parapet, the wall
would be the same color as the brick, so that it would all
as the brick
be one solid color all the way down. Yeah, I don't want it blocked out in different colors.
Not just to slightly get off the color thing for a minute. Did you consider, and if you're a bricklayer, you know the possibility, you have tried steam or cleaning the brick?
No cleaning it. There's no cleaning it. It's like a bronze-colored brick, and it's...
So you just don't like the brick?
No.
Well, I see you have a purple sweater on.
Purple hair, too.
And purple hair, but I wasn't going to mention the purple
I'm
hair.
not asking for purple building.
I guess for everyone's sake, it would be if you could present something that had the full palette of colors, what the roof material was, so we could see the full, or an image that was, so we could see what it looks like. Because I think everyone's first reaction is that the color is a little. It's not bad, but it's if we could see what everything would look like, including the roof shingles and this other color you're talking about,
right,
it would be easier to make a decision.
I mean, I have Sherwin-Williams. They're like, these colors go, and I'm not asking for this orange or this brown either, but this is professionals saying that these go well together, And I'm just asking for some charcoal and cream, not too, I don't find it offensive.
Okay, there's the cream. Well, that's...
Yeah, and charcoal is charcoal. It's dark gray is dark gray,
Chairman Snow.
Ms. Moritz?
I have no objection to the color, and I feel that considering that it is not contiguous to another building, that it doesn't harm the integrity of the district. Thank you.
Mr. Spence, can you answer the question for the lady as why she's here?
Architectural reimaging of buildings requires planning commission review.
That's why you're here.
Okay, I mean, we did put in for the permit in April, and I mean, it is September, and I don't know, I feel like something went wrong. I don't understand why, anything like this should take this amount of time to get to this point.
Well, we don't want to table it because Mr. Valerio have some concerns about moving it along.
I do have a picture here, though, I forgot I had it, of a sign on the building.
We don't,
I know.
signs are
It's
somebody
just that
else.
she had asked if I'm obviously going to put a sign back up so people know what we are, who we are.
So what's the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Valeri.
question for the applicant, and just to make sure I'm reading right. So you're going to paint the front and the side that blue color, or sunburst?
Cloudburst.
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 Yes, we would like to. We have painted the side and the back of the building 3 times in the last 20 years. And I never knew that we should ask permission to do so. We just did it always.
Was that a color rendering, or?
No, let's just show you the sign.
Show you the sign.
Oh, this, yeah.
I guess I think a facelift is going to look very nice here. I'm struggling with if it's going to be in harmony with the surrounding area. And I understand and I respect the comment that it's a freestanding building, but it's just trying to figure out how all of this is going to go together. I like what you're doing. It's just I'm struggling with how it's going to mesh with the buildings next to it.
All the buildings in the neighborhood are that
the cloudburst?
Beautiful brick.
But by going with the cloudburst, it's not going to blend with anything else in that area, and that's my struggle. And I apologize if you've been trying to do this since April, and yes, you're going to run out of time to paint and do some of these things. So we would like to encourage us to keep moving, but I'm struggling with that color because I don't know how it's going to blend and be in harmony with everything else in the neighborhood.
You mean the neighbor's big yellow sign not going to be in harmony with, or what exactly do you mean in the neighborhood, sir?
I don't see anything else in the area that's going to look like this, so it's not going to be in harmony. So it's not going to blend and match. You're taking a brick building, and I've always been a proponent to keep brick, covering up brick. I'm not a fan of. Our ordinances, we encourage to use brick, and we encourage not to paint brick. And if you're going to have brick and you want different colors, it needs to be a integral colored brick, not a painted brick, because you're going to have to maintain the paint, and it's going to fail, and you're going to have issues with it.
We maintain the side of the building as well right now in the back. We've been doing that.
And I see that, and I understand. You asked me my question, so I'm giving you what my thoughts are. I'm struggling with that color. I like everything else that you're doing. I think it desperately needs it. I'm struggling with that sunburst color and how it's going to mesh. And
Cloudburst.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Sidoti.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, what about stains, different types of stains to apply to the existing,
You could stain it, yes.
with a more appropriate color, that would maybe bring the brick color out, or a different color brick, or...
The stain would have to be so dark to cover up the...
All right, well, then how, just different stains to maybe lighten it up a little bit, but bring it more in conformity with the building to the east and the building that goes to the west, which
They
are,
have red brick, that's on both sides.
the building east of you, that's a nice looking building, the one going east.
Yes.
He redid it.
Yeah, I did. I did the brick on that one.
Well, that's really nice looking.
Thank you.
And on Mr. Valeri's point, I too am concerned with that color. When you have a building like that, that's so nice, that's so close to you. So maybe think of some stains.
I mean, do you guys, is there really a color that is not, what color would you recommend?
Mr. Chairman?
Well, we're not here to negotiate colors.
That's what I mean.
So.
That was going to be my comment, Mr. Chairman. It's not so much about the color. It's, for me, it's being in harmony with the surrounding area. I'm really don't care what color, as long as it's in harmony with what else is around it. So if you're asking for a specific color, I don't have that answer for you. It just needs to blend with the surrounding area.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Varga?
You're working with an architect?
Yes.
I don't know him myself, but maybe you could ask him to suggest a palette of colors for the project. He might be able to help you with that, rather than, colors are very personal or very subjective, but he's a professional. Maybe you could ask him to make a suggestion.
He suggests not painting the brick and
There you
leaving it.
I love when architects do just what I want them to.
You need to understand that the business, it is scary. It is scary for a woman to come in to have lunch in my business because of the way that my building looks.
No, I'm not. I'm not trying to. You're trying to liven it up.
I am trying to make it
More inviting.
welcoming to women.
Well, I guess he suggested not to paint it, but being that you want to paint it, and I realize someone else on the board doesn't want you to paint it, but he might give you some suggestions about a set of colors that might be more acceptable to the board. And that would be maybe someone you could ask that would help you get to that next step.
I've had the conversation with him.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Simperman?
Okay, you're working with an architect. Could you maybe get him to do a color rendering? I'm throwing out ideas. I'm not sure they're good. Not sure I want them.
Her deal here.
But if you really like that teal, can you, incorporate it somewhere else in the building, maybe on the bracket? I don't know. I'm just throwing out an idea.
Yeah.
But a color rendering would be really, and a lot of times what they do is they give you a picture of the building and the surrounding area.
You see that?
It has to be the other way around.
This is something that I colored in with the color swatches. I know, it's on my phone.
Yeah, it's not going to.
And it is the color, and it is gray and cream. And I did it with the swatches from the paint store. So I don't know how to.
Okay.
It just looks black and white from here.
Yeah, it does.
Chairman Snow, I don't know if the applicant wants the commission to move forward with a motion to approve and a full vote, or if you would like a motion to table. I don't know.
I would just like you guys to approve it so I could get on with my business, is what I would like.
I suspect that if you ask for a vote, it may be a negative vote. That's why, I think that's why, is that why you asked the question?
That is why.
And that doesn't serve anybody's purpose. So I think Mr. Vargas' comment was appropriate about consulting with your architect, have him come up with some colors that are appropriate, and then we can go from there. So you've been waiting since April. I don't think 3 more months is going to hurt you.
No, I don't have to do this at all. I could take this money and go to Europe. I just thought this would be nice for the city and for the neighborhood, and also for my business.
It certainly would be.
I mean, I think to Chairman's, I don't want to step on your toes, Chairman Snow, but we could vote on this tonight. But I don't.
But I have a question for the law director. If it turns out to be a negative vote, that's done for a year. Is that correct?
No.
Why?
It's just it's not a conditional use permit.
Why isn't it done for a year? In the past, we've had things that are defeated, that they can't come back. It's res judicata. It can't come back.
Well, they can come back. They're still going to get the same vote. Now, obviously, no one does that for that practical purpose. But to the extent they come back with a different color.
Well, that's
correct.
I was under the impression that over the course of time, when something like that has a negative vote, that there needs to be substantially different information that was not available to the applicant at the time. Is that not the case?
Not with architectural review, no.
Okay.
Okay, then I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Sidoti?
It's the color I'm concerned with, so no.
Mr. Valeri?
No.
Mr. Varga?
No.
Mrs. Simperman?
No.
Ms. Moritz?
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic?
No.
Mr. Snow?
No. So I would do what Mr. Vargas suggested, have your architect come up.
So you're saying to me that it's the color that's you don't like, is what you're saying? Is that because there is a bar in my district that is this color?
Where's the bar?
It's called Toth's 2, and it's about a mile and a half away from me. It is in my district.
Mile and a half is a long way away, but now, do we need to go through findings of fact for this?
Please.
Okay. Would you go down through the list then?
Mr. Sidoti?
I'm sorry, what are we voting?
Finding of fact.
Bring it,
The reason
yes.
for the no vote.
Yes.
No. You have to say why you voted no.
Oh, I did. It was the color. I had the problem with the color.
Mr. Valeri?
Not in harmony with the surrounding area.
Mr. Varga?
It's the color palette, the scheme. I need to see a whole scheme. The roofing materials, the siding, the wood details, the brick paint color. It's right now, I can't vote for it.
Mrs. Simperman?
Based on what we have, I agree with Mr. Valeri. It's not in harmony with the surrounding area, and I think we need to see a color rendering.
Mr. Perkovic?
Yes, I agree with the other members, as well as Mr. Varga, that I think that the color right now is the problem with me, but seeing a rendering and or multiple renderings, one with this color, one with other colors, that might help make a choice. Thank you.
Mr. Snow?
I've never been in favor of painting brick, and so that's one of the reasons for the no vote. The other is I'm not convinced that the color palette's the appropriate color palette for the building. Okay. Item 15, final site plan of commercial building on Southside at Justin Way. Guess we won't go there tonight. It's always nice to follow an uplifting vote. Okay, go right ahead. Tell us what you want to do.
Well, David Kane here with Albany Surveying. We're actually representing IRG developers. This is part of the Liberty Business Park 2 development. This would be sublot 3, located here in the southern portion of the property. We're looking to construct an industrial building on that sublot. We're here for final site plan approval. This sublot would be utilizing the proposed roadway as part of Liberty Business Park, and also stormwater detention pond located here along the right-of-way for stormwater management.
Okay. Mr. Spence, comments, if any?
None.
None? Okay. Commissioners?
Well, I do have one comment.
Okay.
I think we might want to make. I didn't see any screening of the rooftop units in the thing, and we want to make sure that those rooftop units are either screened with a parapet wall and/or individual screens.
My name is Robert Powell with Arkinetics, also representing RZ. This the building is of a size and height. This particular rendering is actually set with the eye point at the street at eye level. Mechanical units set 50 feet back from the roof are not visible at all.
Does the ordinance talk about visibility, or does it say they have to be screened?
From off-site views.
Okay.
If they're invisible, there's nothing to be worried about.
Yeah,
but the difficulty is, as the commission's aware, once you're out there in the actual built environment, sometimes those renderings don't have So I'd recommend that prior to final occupancy, if there's an issue, if a field inspection reveals that in fact the rooftop units are visible off-site, that they come back to the Planning Commission to review options for screening.
Okay, that's agreeable.
Yeah, we're confident that from the street from what's the name of the street?
Justin Way.
from Justin Way that they're not visible from the street.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Varga.
I understand it from the point that you're drawing this from, but as you approach this building from down the street, can you see the rooftop units? It's not just standing right in front of the building, but that road goes all the way down. As you approach this building from any distance, do you see the units? I mean, you're approaching this building from quite a ways off. Are we just going to see a bunch of rooftop units as you approach the building?
I don't believe so, but we can run it and verify it.
Well, I would.
At this point,
Yeah.
I mean, we do have. Let's push it back up here. We have one unit that's actually behind this wall. This is a screen wall, and then the other one's again set at a minimum of 50 feet back from the roof. So
We have this discussion with everybody. It's the same discussion. It's just that many people take the most advantage of the point that they look at the building and say, see, you can't see them. And then you get another 50 feet over and you see all of them. So I'm not trying to be argumentative. I just...
Right. We have no problem with designing the structure to put screening up there if in case they're seen.
Okay.
So we have no stipulation. I mean, no problem stipulating that.
So we'll go with Mr. Zeman's comment. If in fact they're not visible, that's fine. If they are visible, we can address it at the final occupancy. Correct?
And we'll design the structure for it.
Okay. Okay. So
Well, there's two. How many units do you have up there?
Well, it's not been fully designed right now, but they're. I'll pull a plan up. Right now, I mean, the intent is we'll probably have one behind the screen wall here, two that are set back here, and probably another two that are clear back here.
Well, I'm saying instead of it increasing the parapet wall, you might do individual screens.
Yeah, well,
of the units.
We would not be increasing the parapet wall. What we would do is we would create
individual screens around those units.
We would build the roof structure.
Okay,
so
I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, we wouldn't be raising the wall.
You wouldn't need to do that, no.
When you talk, I need the microphone pointed toward.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Do you need to repeat that again? Or?
Sure. No, the guys behind the glass are panicking back there.
They want to go.
Yeah. Oh. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Varga.
I have a different question, actually. You show significant expansions of this building. Is the intention to expand with the same architectural approach? I mean, you know.
Okay, here's what I got. The intent is right now that we do have the concrete panels across the front and across the site, and actually on all three sides. The intent was if we do expand, that we would use the same panels.
That's right.
And actually, this side here is meant to be removable and
reused.
Although you try to reuse them, it's designed to be reused. In practicality, sometimes that's not the case. But the intent is we would still use panels because that's what we would want to do. Now, the back of the building is intended to be expanded in the very near future, and the back of the building is shown as a metal panel, a solid insulated panel, because that would be the first thing that would be expanded again in the very near future. Where the sides, it's more of a long-term thing.
And you don't have an elevation. You don't have a view of that with the metal panel.
It's not a rendering from the back side because it's basically. This is just what we submitted here.
Elevation.
And we would make those panels the same color, or at least a complementary color to match what we have for the paint of the concrete panels. But as we expanded, any new expansion out the back, then those would be replaced with a new concrete panel as we built it back. But this is meant. Their intention is to grow within the first 5 years, and that would be the first thing. It's going to go quite quickly.
Chairman
Right,
Snow.
right.
Ms. Moritz.
For my own edification, IRG, can you tell me what is that, Industrial Revenue Group, or is it another company?
Sliders they actually stand for?
I'm not positive.
Something real estate
based
group.
out of Richfield, Ohio.
You're not associated with Stu Lichter in Summit and Stark County?
Yes.
Stewart, yeah.
Yeah, Stewart, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
They are. We're consultants for them.
Yeah, we're consultants.
When the check clears, who does it come from? No, I'm kidding.
Comes from Lee.
Yeah. Any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Spence, any comments from the administration? Mr. Zeman, anything else?
I'm ready for a vote.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. And my question is, should we have a fourth condition that says screening details shall be submitted as part of the building permit review, or just forget?
Mr. Spence, what would you prefer?
I'd just include a condition that the rooftop units shall be screened from off-site views. If we get
If
if
necessary.
we see that it's built and we can
If
see them and
necessary.
they need screened, then they'll have to screen them.
Prior to final.
Yeah, okay.
This is fine.
Yeah, if you put a condition
Oh,
that
final
says
occupancy.
structural.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, that, I'd just include a condition.
Okay. Mrs. Zimmerman, is that fine with you?
That is fine.
Good.
Second.
Jess, when you're ready.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Valeri?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mrs. Simperman?
Yes.
Ms. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic?
Yes.
Mr. Snow?
Yes. Okay, you're good to go. Tell him you did a good job tonight. Tell him you waited the whole evening, and here you are.
He had building material samples.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. They're heavy, too.
I'm sure they are.
Well then, no, we're not.
Mr. Spence, anything in the director's report?
Nothing.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Anybody?
Second.
Okay.